Hello everyone, Noah the Consequence here with episode 3 of my high-level Dungeons & Dragons campaign playthrough. And this is the player character roster. There are 7 characters being run by 5 different players. And here is the roster of both human and animal NPCs associated with the party. Where we left off last time, King Belvoir was congratulating the top 3 placing chariot teams, and he was personally pleased that his champions, the characters, were driving 2 of them, and he was just as happy that the chariot of his arch-rival, the Kingdom of Iuz, came in last. The humiliated Iuz priest demanded a second race, claiming that they had somehow been cheated. The king was going to simply ignore them, but the characters said they were up for it, so Belvoir finally agreed to the rematch. However, Obrecht and Garrett decided to sit this one out, choosing instead to watch while enjoying the local brew. Here they can be seen patronizing one of the many concession stands. The Vestvi Forest elves decided not to compete again either. They didn't really approve of the race to begin with, but they participated as a courtesy to King Belvoir. However, they felt that by competing in the first race, they had fulfilled their obligation. So these are the teams participating in the second race. As you can see, there are now 3 player character chariots and 3 being driven by NPCs. The starting lanes were once again randomly determined, and this was the result. Aramis and Thorol's chariot soon pulled ahead, with Niobe close behind. The remaining chariots jockeyed for position in the back. Varys and Gorbadoc have managed to move 1 lane in, while the Wolf Nomad chariot has migrated outwards. Rounding the bend, Aramis and Thorol have already pulled far ahead, so much so that they aren't even in the screenshot. And, just like with the previous race, the Iuz team is already lagging behind. Only the Wolf Nomad chariot is further back, but at least they've gained the innermost lane. I had to go to this zoomed out view to fit Aramis and Thorol in the same screenshot as everyone else. Many attacks were made back and forth among the teams in the rear, but no one managed to outright destroy another chariot. And once again, the Iuz team has fallen into dead last place. Just as a reminder from the last video, I rolled for all the NPC chariots and their movement rates. However, I made the rolls in the open so that the players could see there was no fudging. The Iuz team really was just that unlucky. Aramis and Thorol easily crossed the finish line first, with Niobe and Jasmine not too far behind. Their coming in second place seemed like a sure thing. But at the last moment, Varys and Gorbadoc made an incredibly lucky movement roll, pulled ahead of Niobe's chariot, and scored second place. However, Niobe and Jasmine did still come in third. Meanwhile, the NPC teams lagged behind, with the Iuz chariot far to the rear. It was amazing how consistently bad I rolled for them, but it was all done in the open and everyone could see it was legit. And here are the final placings. From right to left is Aramis and Thorol in first, Varys and Gorb in second, and Niobe and Jasmine in third. Then the Wolf Nomads, the Valuna Clerics, and finally the Iuz team. King Belvoir again recognized the race winners, extremely pleased that this time all 3 winning chariots were his champions, the characters. And he could barely contain his glee that once again the Iuz crew came in dead last. The Iuz priests were shaking with both rage and fear, knowing that they would have to report their failure to the Demon Lord in person. With the chariot races over, the characters decided to visit the street vendors who had set up outside the stadium. This is just a small sample of what was present. And the characters were especially surprised to find Manco the Falconer, whom they had first encountered at the Midsummer Festival the previous year. Here is a screenshot from that festival, which was featured in one of the earliest videos of this campaign series. Manco's wagon is at the bottom right corner. Here, Varys is talking to Manco, although he ended up not actually buying anything. Meanwhile, Gorbadoc was talking to a fortune teller who offered 2 tiers of card readings. For 1 gold piece, she would cast a generalized fortune using a regular deck of playing cards. Or, for 50 gold pieces, she would let Gorb draw from a tarot deck, which guaranteed an immediate boon or bane. However, that option was restricted to 1 card draw per person. Of course, Gorb decided to go for the tarot cards and paid over the money. Just so you know, the tarot card results were taken directly from an encounter found in this adventure module, X2 Castle Amber. Unfortunately, Gorb drew a bad card, the Knight of Swords. He was immediately saddled with a curse +1 short sword, which would cause him to uncontrollably attack any perceived enemy with it. Fortunately, for the moment at least, everyone in the crowd was friendly enough. Obrak was standing nearby and could not resist drawing from the tarot deck as well. Now, just as an aside, the deck resets after every draw, so Obrak could have drawn the exact same card as did Gorbadoc. However, Obrak drew this card, the King of Wands, and it immediately granted him any magic wand or staff of his choice. Instead, Obrak asked to have back his original Gem of Healing, the very first magic item he ever owned in this campaign, but had long since lost. The gem heals the owner for 1d8 hit points once per day and has no charges. And since this was somewhat similar to a Staff of Healing, I decided to grant Obrak's wish. Sure, he could have asked for an actual Staff of Healing, but he didn't want to have to carry that around, and besides, the gem had a lot of sentimental value. Next, Garrett paid to draw from the tarot deck, and he got a good card as well, one called Strength. The result was that at any time in the future, Garrett can call upon the card's result and be granted the same benefit as drinking a potion of giant strength. Thorl stepped up next and paid over his 50 gold pieces. He too got a good card called the Wheel of Fortune. This card grants a temporary bonus on attacks and saving throws. Unfortunately, the effect started immediately, and since the characters were not adventuring, it soon expired without actually doing anything helpful. Next up was Varus, who drew yet another good card, this one called the Magician. Through it, he immediately received a magic item called a Ring of Spell Storing. This was a great deal, considering that it cost him only 50 gold pieces to obtain. Aramis drew last, but he got a bad card, one called the Moon. It brought on a temporary insanity, which lasted for 1 turn. Because of it, he immediately began attacking Obrak, who of course defended himself. However, since both characters have such high armor classes and so many hit points, neither of them were seriously injured by the time the insanity expired. Finally, at the end of the day, everyone returned to King Belvor's townhouse. And just as on the evening before, King Belvar hosted a private dinner for the characters. Then there was another soiree, this time to celebrate the characters' victories in the chariot races. At one point, King Belvar announced that tomorrow there would be a jousting tournament, and again the characters were encouraged to participate. Just as the chariot races were for the common folk, the jousting tournament would be for the entertainment of the upper class and nobility. And King Belvar had invited knights from Furiandi and the surrounding lands to participate in the tournament. And although it may seem odd, I opened up the tournament to every character in the party, even Thorl the Mage, for example. I didn't want anyone to be left out. Nio the Cleric thought that she would not be eligible due to the cleric's weapons restrictions. However, I pointed out that the lances used in jousting tournaments are blunted. Therefore, it would be fine if she wanted to participate. However, back to Belvar's announcement, the king pointed out that only nobles are permitted to joust, and unfortunately, the characters still had one commoner among them. Referring back again to episode 28, after Prince Thromel's wedding, King Belvar conferred upon the characters titles of nobility in gratitude for rescuing his son from the Temple of Elemental Evil. Everyone, that is, except for Gorbadoc. Gorb was not with the party when Throma was rescued, nor was he present for the prince's wedding to Lady Jolene. But now King Belvar offered to make Gorbadoc a gentleman of the land in view of his services to Furiandi against the giants in the Drow. This would grant Gorb the lowest level of nobility, and thus permit him to participate in the jousting tournament. However, Gorbadoc refused the offer, even after being given multiple opportunities to reconsider. King Belvar finally dropped the matter and called for the visiting knights to enter the room. The characters would then be asked to choose an opponent to joust against on the following day. And this scene shows the name tags turned on, so you can see the opposing knights that each of the characters chose to challenge. The remaining knights, those not paired with a character, would joust against each other and could potentially advance in the brackets to eventually face one of the characters. And here is the same scene with the name tags turned off. Notice Gorbadoc standing off in the corner. Since he voluntarily chose to remain a commoner, he would not be permitted to participate in the tournament. Alright, well, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. You can leave a comment, let me know what you think. If you haven't, please consider subscribing. And anything you do to help support the channel, I appreciate it. Thanks again. Bye for now.